Okay, good evening, everyone. We're going to be waiting a couple of minutes to see if people hop on and start watching. Not, it's going to be accessible here in this library. Um, so, hey, good evening. This is everyone. A new place. We're going to be waiting. Hang on just a couple of minutes to see if people hop on and start watching. Not, it's going to be accessible here in this library. So, hey, this is a new place. We're going to be waiting just a couple of minutes to see if people hop on and start watching. Now it's going to be accessible here in this library. So, hey, this is a new. I'm hoping it's still recording. Let me check, because it was looping around since that's a new, let's see. Okay, we are live. My name is Diana Martinez Alexander.
Michelle Palmer.
And we're both educators in the Houston area. We've both run for office and we've been active in the Democratic Party at different levels with clubs and different organizations. We're deeply invested in educating and sharing information as much as possible. With the uncertainty that comes with this administration, it's best to be informed and make sure that we stick together and look for the truth amongst trusted sources. So that's why we decided to go ahead and complete an update on Project 2025. Michelle, any words?
No, for those of you who aren't aware, though, we did a series of presentations in the late summer and fall on what was in Project 2025. Not everybody has time to read 900 pages, but we did want people to know what was going on. So we read it, and then we did presentations on it. Now we want to tell you, well, what does that mean now?
Right. It's certainly not the outcome that we expected or desired. But what do we do now in this situation to make sure that we're uplifting and protecting those around us, vulnerable communities? And so, since we're in education, we did focus on certain things that kind of affected that piece. So we'll go ahead and start with the Canva presentation that we created. Let's see, we'll have Michelle share that.
Yep, I've got it shared.
Okay, so if you can go back to the beginning.
Oh, weird. Yes.
No worries. So we kind of tag team and wanted to make sure that we're covering, different pieces. So we'll switch off here and there. And I'd be happy to share this Canva. Again, this is not meant to be a conclusive update. We did select certain pieces to focus on only because it is a lot. It's very dense, and honestly, we don't have a lot of answers yet. So it's gonna we're gonna see what comes in the next few months after the inauguration. But let's start with the numbers. So if we can go to the next slide. Okay, so just to kind of sum up where we are, first of all, where's this mandate that they have spoken, the Republicans have spoken of? Because when you look at the popular vote, it's really a slimmer margin than they expected. But then when you go to, if you look at the popular vote, the numbers are listed there. And then the House margin ended up being just a sliver. So it's 219 Republicans and 215 Democrats. So every single vote counts. But then you have two pending vacancies. Which I'll go into in a second, which would make it even slimmer of 217 to 215. And then you go to the Senate margin, you have 53 Republicans and 47 Democrats. So again, a very slim margin. So those potential vacancies that are up is Elise Stefanik, who is up for the UN ambassador, and she's in New York, and then Mike Waltz in Florida, who is up for national security advisor, plus somebody else, this guy, Matt Gaetz, who is just Matt Gaetz. So no other description needed. But thank goodness he no longer holds office. I'm sure that he'll find other ways to ingratiate himself with the best people. Okay, so if we look at the Latina vote in Texas and beyond, because that is something that has been discussed quite a lot. If you think of where the vote landed, it had some mixed results. So the Republicans did win 14 out of 18 border counties in Texas, which is a higher number than in previous years. So if you look at 2016, Hillary Clinton won 9 more counties. And we've steadily lost those in 2024. So that's that trend. However, Walz and Harris still won the Latina vote nationwide. And when you look at local races, like sheriff races and places like Los Angeles, there were some really progressive wins, because when they know you, they'll vote for you. So there's like this connection and relational type of following that happens in the local races, and so you do have more Latina support in that situation. However, Trump is the first Republican to win Miami-Dade County in 30 plus years. So there is some work for us to do to make sure that we're addressing the needs of Latin votes and not just assuming that we have that support, but listening and figuring out what those needs are so we can make sure that we're having those conversations. So that's something for us to keep in mind. Okay, so the next section is about the land that was offered by Texas Land Commissioner Don Buckingham. So prior to the election, there was a purchase of like 1,400 acres. And this was held by a landowner who previously stopped or kind of like was resistant to the border wall being built on that land. But now, since the land is purchased by Texas, they're happy to accommodate the construction of a border wall and also a detention center in Starr County. Starr County is a location where the poverty rate is higher than in other areas. Sorry, my dog is just doing whatever she wants to do. So it is, some people are saying, yes, let's go ahead and have this. Is good for our community. There's lots of job creation, restaurants and other lodging are being built up because they're seeing that this is a potential opportunity. However, the ACLU is, of course, opposing these efforts. There are other organizations like Raices that we'll talk about, but mainly what we need to do is go ahead and encourage any folks who may need it to participate in a know your rights session, because just being informed and not operating on fear but operating on information to make plans for your self and your families, that's an important thing for us to do, and sticking together with community. I do want to point out that ICE has 20 plus detention centers already in Texas. I'm curious what this is going to look like, but we are going to talk about some things that we can do in regards to mass deportation, just in general. Um, just a little bit. That could be a whole nother update just in and of itself. But we did want to touch on that because of the offer to have land just graciously donated for these detention centers. And another thing I want to point out is this is an opportunity for those who own these detention centers to make money. Okay. They're not doing it out of the generosity of their heart. They see it as a way to grift and partake of public funds each night. And this figure may have changed, but at one point in the last like 3-4 years, it the charge for one person to spend the night in a detention center, the charge was $750 for taxpayers. So this is not cheap. And where's this money coming from? It's coming from us. So that's something to keep in mind when we're talking about not just the humanity of it, but also the economics of it. And this is being done in our name. And I abhor these types of actions. And I know I'm not the only one in this. So we need to make sure that we're not just obeying in advance. I'm good. I'm done.
So, normally we have the dream team, but that's not what's going to be happening for the next 4 years. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the nightmare theme. I'm only going to touch on those who had a hand in writing Project 2025. So that's who I'm talking about. I'm going to talk about six people that took part or had a direct report who took part in writing Project 2025. So we're going to start with Russ Voigt, or Vote. I think it's Vote, and he has been nominated to be the OMB director, and the OMB is the Office of Management and Budget. This man is a self-identified Christian nationalist. He founded the Center for Renewing America, and their entire purpose in the beginning was to combat critical race theory. So they're the ones that came up with that lovely idea. They are anti-Muslim, or he is anti-Muslim. He said Muslims do not simply have a deficient theology. They do not know God because they have rejected Jesus Christ, his son, and they stand condemned. So basically, if you're not a Christian, you can't be a good person, in his opinion. As a non-Christian, that offends me. His additions to Project 2025 include using military force against protesters, defunding the EPA, gutting the FBI, ending the independence of the Justice Department, and casting civil servants as obstructive to policy. If you didn't watch any of mine and Diana's previous presentations, we talked about the OMB and how the Project 2025 wanted to weaponize it, to use it like the Death Star to kill anything that the president doesn't like, and to redirect those funds without congressional oversight at all, to do whatever the president wants. Similar to how President Trump took money out of various places to build his wall in the first term because the Congress wouldn't pass it. So that's Dan Voigt. Next, a sadly familiar face, Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller is being nominated for Homeland Security Advisor. And the anti-immigrant parts of Project 2025 are basically his dream. And he helped to write much of it. At the Madison Square Garden rally, the big crazy rally, one of his quotes is, "America is for Americans and Americans only." The problem is who gets to determine what an American is, because there is no definition in the Constitution. I'm a government teacher. I've read it a few times. Next, we have John Ratcliffe. He is being nominated as the CIA director, another incredibly important position. His chief of staff, when he was one of Trump's appointees the first time around, wrote the chapter on U.S. intelligence in Project 2025. And they basically want to use U.S. intelligence not only against, America's supposed enemies, but also our internal, quote, enemies. That would be any of us who protest, right? Who don't blindly go where they want us to go. Next, we have Brendan Carr. Brendan Carr is being nominated for FCC chair, Federal Communications Commission. And Trump has already said, and Brendan Carr has already said, that he wants to shut down TV stations, radio stations that aren't supportive of President Trump. He basically wants to make it state media. We would be Russia all over again. Really horrifying. Then we have a couple more. We have, of course, Tom Homan. I wrote OMB director, but it's actually immigration czar. Sorry. So he's the one that is the vehement anti-immigrant, along with Stephen Miller, of course. And he wrote the parts of Project 2025 that are about ICE and about the immigration crackdown that they want to institute. Horrible. And then Peter Navarro, who is being nominated as a senior trade advisor, was recently released from prison. But he wrote the section called The Case for Fair Trade. And basically, this is where all those tariffs come in, right? Tariff on everything. And he very much supports all of that. And they have not announced, well, they have announced, this person, okay, there's a guy named Andrew Ferguson, who, as far as I know, had nothing to do with Project 2025. This one horrified me, though. Anyone who knows me knows how vehemently anti-big business I am. And Lena Khan, who is the current chair of the Federal Trade Commission, has been fighting these trusts and monopolies and the big mergers of the mega companies for the last 4 years. And they want to put Andrew Ferguson in that position, who is all about big business, letting them do whatever they want, laissez-faire economics. And even though he has nothing to do with Project 2025, I could not ignore him being put in that position. Your turn.
So since we're both educators, I had a lot of questions about the closure of the Department of Education. And first of all, I want to say that I'm almost left with even more questions now that I did some research. And really, we're going to see what happens in the next few months as far as, how far Trump is going to be able to go with some of the things that he wants to do, or that he said that he wants to do, and just the ineptitude of the former president, because he really doesn't hire the best people. And I didn't even put on this slide that he has proposed the WWE McMahon to be to be the head of the Department of Education, which is it blows my mind. Um, it makes, the bear conversation that we had with the prior head of Department of Education seem, wistful and kind of nostalgic. Now we're headed into the ring. So, one note is that the Department of Education, is fairly new. It was created by President Carter, rest in peace, and it has several functions. So not only does it provide funds to private and public universities, it also administers Title I funds. They also deal with protections for special populations, whether it be special education, and ensuring that those students have access to services as individually designed in their plan, or LGBTQIA students who deserve civil protections, and that is enforceable under laws and policies made by the Department of Education and Title IX. Trump has already said that he is going to repeal the additional protections that Biden just put in place recently through Title IX to address gender identity, which is scary because the saying is the cruelty is the point. And there was a situation just recently in a local high school. I'm not going to name names, but it's in my district, where they had a student who was repeatedly bullied and called homophobic slurs, and they videoed it, and they were doing lewd things with props with this student who was outnumbered. And these are just the things that we know about. And we talk about what will happen when we don't have the protection of these organizations and these structures to protect students. It's a regression. It's a severe regression. Okay. But here's the good news: closing the Department of Education does require a congressional vote. And I don't see that we have the will, even when it comes to Republican um, representatives, to go for this type of proposal of the abolition or the cessation of the Department of Education. It could be that these duties are moved to other departments, but they'll still need people to administer them. And I just don't know if Trump could do it by a executive order. Would that be overturned by the Supreme Court, by this Supreme Court? Time will tell. So again, we have a lot of questions about how this is going to affect, and I worry about special populations because that is my business. I'm an educational diagnostician, so I work with special education students, and those who are in that situation, they deserve access to education just like everyone else. If you think about what used to happen, those students did not have access to instruction. They were put in rooms with no interaction, not best practice, belittled, and not didn't have good outcomes. So I expect that we give students the best opportunities, and I'm going to continue, and I know Michelle is going to continue to look for those opportunities to advocate for that. And that goes into something that Michelle will talk about later, because if you think of the Title I funds, most of those funds go to red states, including Texas. So that would be and Title I funds, like I say in the slide, they support low socioeconomic status schools. Now, would that be covered by another department? I don't know, but those Title I funds are about 10% of a district's funding. So it is critical that we get that money because we already are very, very tight on spending, especially in Texas, because of the actions of Greg Abbott. And it's deliberate, right? It's deliberate to starve public schools so he can get what he wants through the vouchers. So it can be very detrimental if things don't go well. But again, that congressional vote may not go the way that he wants it to go. But we just got to stay informed and keep fighting.
And we all know, I hope, that destroying public education is the point, right? The number of billionaires whose goal is to destroy public education so that they can either, as Diana used the word earlier, grift, or let their friends grift and get some of that juicy money for themselves, or just destroy it so that
Right.
they continue to have worker bees, right? Who can't think for themselves, who can't compete with them because they can't think outside the box, and all of that. If they can destroy public education, they can control us way easier.
And the grift comes in by charter schools and those monies and the lack of oversight when it comes to those types of institutions. It's deliberate, right? So absolutely follow the money.
All right, so here's the call to action. Every presentation should have a call to action. So what can you do about all of this? Well, here in Texas, we know that our biannual state legislative session is starting. Only about 5 months every other year is our legislature in session, and they have to do all of their work in that time period and create a biennial budget as well. So one of the things you can do is track bills. If you do not have the spoons to do it yourself, then you can follow or join one of these organizations, and others. You can join a union. That I know that AFT, one of the teacher unions, does an amazing job of following any bills that have to do with education. Texas Freedom Network follows pretty much everything that's heinous, and all the good ones that we're trying to get passed, and reports. I get their emails weekly, reports on what is going on. Where are they in the process? What action do you need to do? You need to contact these 6 legislators because they're the ones on the committee that are going to be deciding if it goes forward or not. And things like that. They have a lot of calls to action that are very easy, very short, and very powerful. You can also join or follow the Mexican American Legal Defense and Education Fund. This is MALDEF. This is very powerful. I don't have it on here, but it's like the Latino version of the NAACP. And it does a lot of the same things. It uses lawsuits to fight for equality for Mexican Americans, and it has been doing so for decades. They also follow some of these horrible bills. The ACLU, of course, we always want to support our passionate, important organizations like that. The Houston Democracy Project right here. Neil is a friend to both Diana and I, and he does important work, and the Houston Democracy Project will certainly be writing as often as possible about all of these tragic bills. And then Diana mentioned earlier, so if you want to talk about this one.
Sure. Raices is another organization that helps immigrants with the process and also advocates against any legislation that would be harmful to the undocumented community. So I did also want to mention, Planned Parenthood might be something that we could also add to this list. The thing is not to get overwhelmed by everything. Like, kind of be selective in what you want to focus on, because there's a lot to do, and I think it's just stressful when you take everything all at once. But if you just kind of like parse it out and focus, and I know Michelle's going to talk a little bit more about that. So
Yeah. I mean, it is very overwhelming. That's why I don't follow a lot of bills myself. I follow these organizations and I follow them on social media and I get all of their emails, their newsletters, because it can be incredibly overwhelming. So other things that you can do. You can call your elected officials on the national level, as well as the state level, as well as the county level, as well as the city level. Like whatever level can deal with whatever the issue is, you can contact them. You can write or email your elected officials as well. You can go to Austin for lobbying days. There are going to be lobbying days for everything. There will be education lobbying days, usually during spring break. There will be immigration lobbying days. There will be a lobby day for everything. If you are able to get to Austin during the session to talk in person to your representatives, it's incredibly powerful. Even if they're not going to agree with you, they should hear those words from you and see your passion about this issue. And if you can take your kids, even better. If they can talk to their representatives, it's incredibly powerful. You can also go to DC for lobbying. I know people do it. I have never been able to afford it. I am a lowly teacher, but I know that many people go to DC to lobby, and I think they're amazing for doing so. And you can run for office, right? We need people to run for some of these positions that were not, there was no Democrat running in 2024. State Representative 133, my little West Houston state rep district is winnable. It is 100% winnable. But ever since they redrew it to make it more winnable, nobody has run in either of the two. Nobody real has won. Like it was just a name on the ballot. So run for office, or find somebody who's running for office and support them. Support them with money, support them with your time, share their social media posts, whatever it is. Every little bit helps. And then finally, we all have to take care of ourselves. Diana and I kind of try to keep each other in check on this because it's hard. It's so hard to be a activist right now.
yeah,
And to try to make the world better for your children and the children of Texas. It's terrible and it's exhausting, and we all need to go get a manicure or a pedicure or a massage or just breathe or read that trashy novel that you want to read, whatever it is.
right.
Whatever it is.
So I just wanted to point out that we needed to I needed to focus in on just a couple of things. Like, I am not going to solve all of the problems, but I am going to pay particular attention to immigration and also to education issues. And then, working on continuing these educational outreaches to y'all, because we do want to share good information, because fear breeds in ignorance, right? And there's also the other part of stepping back and knowing when you're getting too much information and your anxiety is building. And we learned this the first time around, right? We're going to be very selective in where we put our attention. That doesn't mean that bad people doing bad things don't have accountability. What it does mean is that I'm not going to let all of those tricks and everything consume me in the same way, because it's detrimental and it like prevents us from being able to move forward and actually do something productive. Everyone can do a little something. So whether it's calling your elected official or writing them or going to the Cornyn protest on Tuesdays at 5300 Memorial from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. They've been doing it for 413 weeks. Tomorrow will be 413 weeks, right?
Yep.
That's fortitude, right? But if that's the only thing that you can do, that's something, and it everything matters. But checking on other folks also matters. Stepping away when you need a break also matters, because we're going for the long haul here. And our democracy is worth it, and you're worth it. Your families are worth it. Remember what we're fighting for.
Exactly. And like Diana said, don't try to do everything. You can't. You literally cannot. Like Diana, I will be concentrating on a couple of areas. We will both, of course, be concentrating on education. It is our life. But I will also be probably concentrating secondarily on women's rights, and what's happening, like with Black maternal mortality, and so many horrific things happening on that front. And will they actually do anything real to counter it, or will it just be lip service again?
Right. And standing up to Christian nationalism is patriotic, right? Our country has a separation of church and state for a reason, and we're going to continue to call that out. I and just make sure that we're standing up for those and standing with those and amplifying the voices of other people who are from vulnerable communities or under those who are under attack, because that is unacceptable and we know better. We do better.
Yeah. On that Christian nationalist note, if anyone is interested, there are several secular organizations in the Houston area, and one of them is organizing a secular lobby day. As far as we know, it will be the first one ever in
Sweet.
Texas. So that will be February 10th and 11th. So just a little over a month away. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, there's a very strong secular Houston organization. And so make sure if you're in the Houston area, but if you're statewide, there are other groups as well that focus in on the separation of church and state, because it's being wielded as a weapon to hurt and other people. What I mean by the verb other is to anyone who doesn't fit the mold of the white male Anglo-Saxon Christian type, are others. And if we don't fit that mold, then don't measure up. And they want to continue that toxic patriarchy system. So anyway, on that note, anything else you wanted to share, Michelle?
I think that's it.
Okay.
This went pretty fast.
Yeah, we did. But maybe we'll circle back as things come up, because we didn't even get to talk about women and people growing their families and how that's going to work. And I mean, it's pretty bad in Texas. Like, Texas has it bad already, but if they're going to start like tracking pregnancies and garbage like that, that's something that we will need to circle back to for sure. Yeah. Because women deserve health care, pregnant folks deserve health care.
Maybe we can do another one once they start having committee meetings.
Yeah.
Legislature, because right now it's just filing, right. And then they'll start having committee meetings, right. And then we'll see whoever the new chair is, speaker is, which bills does he actually give a committee assignment.
For sure. And one other thing that we need to probably educate folks on is the attacks on no fault divorce and what that means, because that would be a huge hit for women in terms of being able to control their narrative and their life choices. So,
Another one
yeah,
I just saw on X Twitter yesterday. Chuck Cruz runs against one of the most heinous people in the state legislature, and that person just filed, I don't even want to give his name. That person just filed a bill that would make it illegal for any townships, cities, or counties to have any kind of red flag law.
yeah.
So my response to him on Twitter was, do you actively hate women? I mean, what other possible reason?
It's super gross. It's
Yeah.
super gross. So the fight continues. We go onward. We're reclaiming January 6th and for patriotism, for love of country, and what it really means to defend our Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, because those a-holes who want to try to uprise and take over and grab and power grab and all this business, that's for the birds. We deserve to have our country back.
And shout out to Vice President Kamala Harris for she was just beautiful today and yesterday when she was swearing in the various senators, and then today when she had to announce her own loss for president with just absolute grace and humility. She was amazing.
And before Michelle cries too much, we also need to honor the late great President Carter, who it was just an inspiration in his life and in his death. And I'm just so thankful that I remember him as the first president, of my lifetime. And I feel grateful that he was there for our country and everything that he did and his family did, and the lesson of life and love and just what it means to be a servant. And I think we're all better for it. And it's a striking contrast, and it's a reminder of what we deserve. So thank you to President Carter. So on that note, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, this will be on the channel, and so you're able to access it and share it from YouTube. This is our first foray into this particular structure of how we're doing it, because we usually do it on Facebook, but then it's not available on other platforms. And so we really wanted to make sure that we're able to disseminate this information and keep it in a repository, so it's all in one place. We'll do this again. Take a breath. Remember that there are more of us than that there are of those insurrectionist whatever I want to say, but I don't want to. Anyway, so let's keep the faith. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Diana.